Yeah, I hate that a lot. I don't understand why you need, because I'm retarded when it comes to audio equipment and anything technology. The last live stream I did, I couldn't even figure out how to log out of a Discord account that it automatically made for me. Took me like a good 2.5 minutes. Well, I mean, 2.5 minutes isn't that bad compared to like boomer status technology stuff where they just call their nephew when they, like, one pop-up comes up, they don't even read it, they just call their nephew. That's my favorite part of being in IT for a year, was when people would reboot their computer after not doing it for like 4 weeks, and it would automatically shut itself off from like a New Year's Day or something, and it would be a black screen that just says start Windows normally, and they don't even read the text, they just call IT. I started my computer, it's called this text. I'm like, well, what does it say? Start Windows normally? Did you start Windows normally? Well, no. Do the thing. It looks different to them, so their brain, there's no critical thinking that happens. There's no like closed loop logic loop, so it's just like, oh, better call someone because I'm incompetent.
It's not fair at a base level because we literally grew up with this shit, and it's like there's just a small, shut up, I know you're gonna say something, but there's a small like if then loop that we have ingrained in our brains from using this
Much
for
like
years.
a loop of a cornucopia.
Ooh, very nice. The tail hook of the horn of plenty. If you could just see how exciting the glasses that I have prepared for
the
us.
picture is going to be on the screen for the YouTube viewers right now.
Okay. We have with us, we are drinking, why don't you describe that?
The Glenlivet 14-year aged cognac cask edition. So normally you would have a cask of Scottish variety, therefore making it Scotch, which this is technically still Scotch because it's made in Scotland, much like only Kentucky-made bourbon is real bourbon. But this is, they import cognac casks from France so that they can age them in a cognac cask, and it gives a much smoother body than the typical hearty cedar taste of and peaty taste of most scotches. Just like most bourbons just taste like you're licking a piece of charcoal because the charred Kentucky oak barrels are just god awful.
It's pretty ridiculous. Although I've had some bourbon that was pretty damn good. I don't understand. I think it's just what they are trying to make out of it, and I think people that drink bourbon are expecting it to taste like a fucking campfire.
That's really what it is. The only bourbon that we've ever had, which was actually on this podcast, was the Four Roses, and it still has that body of flavor, but it's not as rough.
No, it's the, I think it was the Four Roses small batch, sorry, and I went to the distillery and did a tour, very hungover, but I still learned a lot about what baffles me is that they don't. It's not just an equation like put in corn mash, let's sit for X, Y, Z. They make all of this in barrels, and then they have some dude who just tastes it all day and goes, "Oh, it needs some more of extract A over here."
Right.
And that to me is like, it's such an intangible thing to taste because it's not a metric, it's not a color, it's not a so
right. And that's the interesting thing about making booze is you could put X, Y, and Z at X, Y, and Z quantities every time, and the booze is going to taste different due to the change in temperature, due to the
pressure,
the silage that you use.
Yeah.
It's going to be different because of the growth year, the acidity of the soil, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You have to taste it to figure out where it's going.
Ad infinitum, what can change it? It's incredible though, the process, that the scale that they do it in,
right?
And then they, they obviously do tours around there. Some lady brought her freaking baby to the tour, and like, well, we're not going to go into this room; it's too loud because of the baby. I'm like, fuck you! This is alcohol. This should be like a no one under 21. Like, yeah, but it's a baby; it's not going to drink. Like, I don't care. Anyway,
or just leave the baby outside to the wolves while you go in the loud room.
Yeah, with alcohol, but I really don't drink that much at all anymore, and I like to drink things that are like decent.
Well, that was one topic that I completely forgot about. Was we live in a society, and it's been this way for since 1776 because, believe it or not, the Minutemen were just drunkards that hung out at a tavern a
Hell
lot.
yeah, brother.
We don't drink to celebrate anymore. People just go to the bar after work every day a lot. And even at the end of the week, people celebrate the simplest shit of, oh, I survived the week. Better go blow half my paycheck at the bar.
I don't think that's a today thing. I mean, I was talking to my grandpa about...
That's what I'm saying. It's been going on since 1776.
Oh, well, probably forever. We've been drinking for a long time.
Right. I mean, look at the Vikings.
But, yeah, alcohol consumption, it's such a weird thing on society where it's like how it is, what it is. And, like, I'll tell people, like, well, I'm not going to drink. Like, I didn't plan on drinking tonight, but you brought over nice
Scotch.
So it's like, okay, I'll have... I mean, what have I had? Like, probably 3 glasses.
Uh-huh.
And
they're short glasses. They're not like you're filling a whiskey glass.
No, and I mean, that's actually probably a serving, 1.5 ounces.
Yeah.
So, it
Whatever
blows
that is in metric.
It
30
blows
mils.
people's mind when you tell them that you don't just go out and get shit faced. Because to me, sleep is way too fucking important.
Well, I mean, we went to a party school, and I never went to a bar.
Well, you missed out. I mean, I think you got to spend some time.
I mean, when our best little dwarf friend went out, when he came back, and I was still in college, I went out with him. But for myself, I never went out to a bar.
I wouldn't go out unless it was a weekend or there was like dollar pitcher nights. But
Of most high quality Busch Latte.
I think it was Natty Light.
Even better.
But $1 pitcher, you just don't get that kind of savings around. No, it's incredible. I think what did I tell someone at work? I was like, you know, everyone needs to go through a self-discovery phase, but there's just something about a person where if you didn't at one point in college wake up at 9 a.m. and start drinking and then pass out and then wake up at 7, 8 o'clock at night and then go out to the bars and keep drinking, I don't know if I can trust you.
I can easily say I've never even thought about doing that, much less done it. I've been blackout drunk twice in my life, and I've been intoxicated maybe a dozen times. Like I am at the very low end of the drinking spectrum, but that's partially due to the fact that I'm just physically broken. Like I have a bad heart, a bad back, bad knees, bad elbows, bad shoulders, bad neck.
Oy vey.
And alcohol, all it does is increase swelling in your body. I mean, you're having trouble breathing right now because your capillaries in your nose are swollen because that's what alcohol does. Yeah.
There's a lot of things. I mean, it's a literal poison. It's a chemical. I mean, everything's a chemical, but it's
right.
Like, hey, let's take this viable food and then we'll just let it sit and, long enough until it rots. And then the rotting stuff produces these weird juices. We'll drink that. Makes you feel all dizzy and happy.
It's so strange.
I just don't understand where it started.
Well, like most great ideas, it was a mistake, I'm sure. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Animals get intoxicated.
Well, when fruit rots and there's a freeze on top of the fruit and it thaws like it does in the Midwest, that's the easiest way to get drunk. Is in the nature. There's a lot of cases of animals getting drunk. I mean, I've seen a video from whatever
squirrels.
Was it squirrels?
I keep going.
It was whatever channel it was on back in hell. I was 2008 or 9 when I had Discovery Channel, and you just watch these forest creatures. They would literally be surrounding each other, trying to get this fruit because they knew they could get high.
There is a well-documented across different animal species that get high off different things. So there's, I don't think it's just squirrels.
How did we already become the Joe Rogan podcast with this?
I don't know. It just happens. I mean, like there's a certain.
You ever tried DMT?
You ever tried DMT? It's pretty sweet. You get to talk to some super ultra dude. He's like a god, but he tells you how to do your son's math homework correctly.
Your butthole's going to be a little swollen, but it's fine.
Oh, it's totally awesome. And then but anyway, but there's a certain pachyderm like. I don't know, like an ox or something that eats this berry that they think is hallucinogenic to them. They just eat the shit out of it.
Like a moth to the flame.
Yep. But No, yeah, it was probably an accident, but people's bodies handle this a lot better than something like, I don't know, iocane powder. But like we just like, hey, somebody bought that bottle for you they spent $50. $50 for poison. Like you could ingest all that fast enough and kill yourself drinking it.
Right.
You could drink that enough, and that could fuck up 2 days.
I mean, think about it. What other ingestible item that is socially acceptable can do that to you? A steak? Probably not. You'd probably Ralph before it killed you. Water? You would definitely Ralph before it killed you.
Even magic mushrooms, you puke before you reach, like, because if you hit a threshold, you just puke it up. Your body's like, nope, because that high is just a weird, fun food poisoning.
Right.
It literally is. Like,
well, it's because it stools in your stomach because your body can't break it down.
I mean, it's a mushroom. So there's Oh, by the way, I just got it today. The Paul Stamets 7 supplements of. So I got Christmas money to Amazon, and I bought like, I don't know, 120 days worth of. It's like a 7 blend of mycelia from different awesome
The
sweet.
Stamets blend of herbs and spices.
Hell yeah, it's probably just dried up fox semen, but because apparently someone has a lot of it.
Well, ever since I heard that on Rogan's podcast and all the stupid supplements that he pushes with on it, especially for my eyes, which is another part of my body that's breaking down because genetics are great. I'm taking a different supplement for my eyes and my brain because I was trying to get off caffeine because I thought the caffeine and the stress from the caffeine was causing my eyes to be bad, which it's not. But there's a similar alpha supplement for your brain that's a stimulant that I found on Amazon, and then I found this lutein supplement, which is a carotenoid, which is basically just a dye to keep blue light from damaging your retinas, which my retinas are already degenerated, so there's no saving them. It's just trying to preserve them. But I've been trying, just because you referenced those mycelia supplements, I've been trying different supplements that I'm going to be reviewing on the Lifestyle channel. But
pick up the, I think it's cordyceps. Everyone seems to like those for energy.
Really?
I don't. I took 2 today. I don't really.
Well, that's the thing. I've been taking these for 2 or 3 months because sometimes it's a logarithmic scale before your body can start accepting it, and sometimes it does fuck all in a big ship. You just got to really figure it out and listen to your body. Is that a Glock box?
Yeah,
if you're 26.
What? Yes, it's for my tiny wiener gun. It's it literally, I think, is the box that it came in.
Yep.
Well, I bought it from somebody, private sales,
Right.
But
the thing the government's trying to outlaw.
Oh yeah. Well, Illinois has already pretty much outlawed private sales.
California, Illinois, New Jersey, New York are trying. That's the beauty of private sales. If they don't know, they don't know. And there's supposed to not be a registry, but I think the next background check is a registry.
I mean, it's okay. So we can both agree that they do the search and it's saved somewhere.
Well, it has to be. Well, the 4473s are saved somewhere.
Yeah, but that's physical paper. I'm
but
talking.
They say it's a physical paper copy, but how do you think they get the scanned copy to print?
Oh, really? It's scanned. They send it off or something?
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a print there. It's not like the gun shop mails them a copy.
I thought it was. In my ignorance, I thought you walk into a gun shop, you say I want that gun, they run the next background check, they say it's good, you fill out the 4470, and then they keep it for 10 years.
Yeah, they hold on the 4473 at the gun shop, but there's a lot of places, depending on the state, that actually have to send it to the Alphabet Boys. It's all a lie. I mean,
so
eventually the state's going to get too big.
You're telling me that, I mean, if you...
That and if the ATF audits them, which is why they have to hold on to the 4473s, they can take whatever they want.
Yeah, that's... I just can't believe...
I've been asked about... Have I told you that the ATF agent asked about me because I buy so many guns?
Oh yeah,
They're not
absolutely.
supposed to be able to do that. That's an infringement on my Second Amendment rights. But he did specifically ask for me by name to the gun shop that I do all my transfers through.
I mean, like no case file open or anything, or no charges. Just
Dude was asking about me. Why is he transferring so many guns?
civil liberties are
Well, that's why I
non-existent.
want to be there when the dude is doing the audit, so I can tell him to fuck right off.
Like, hey, dickweed, what's going on? You like your job? You think you're protecting America? Did they you swallowed all those lies? You think yourself?
Well, I've had this glorious thought process in my head that if I ever met this dickhead, which my mind automatically builds him as a typical baby-faced, shitty haircut, 35-year-old something that's a beta nobody, and he's probably about 5'3" and sad. It's like just this small, broken little man that since he's part of the group, that's most of people's lives is they're just trying to be part of something bigger. And I think that's what most government employees are, is they're trying to be something bigger than themselves. And I mean, I've had this conversation with you a million times, is the human brain in and of itself is trying to, well, other than procreate and eat and shit, it's self-preservation. I think humans are inherently ignorant and selfish because they need to survive. So the best way to survive is to flock, right? You want to be part of something bigger. You want to be part of the group. I've never had that drive. Don't know why. I've been a hermit most of my life. So that's what I think most government workers are, is they want to preserve the state because it preserves them.
That's a good aspect of it, and I would like to add to that it's just indoctrinated into the whole thing, because like we have a job, right? Mm-hmm. They're not like, oh, you're doing this job to save America,
right?
And here's statistics showing, here's not even inflated statistics. It's just here's selective things that we want to show you that make it sound like you're really going out there and you're really making a difference, and we need you here. And this is protecting people. And then you tell them that over and over again, and everyone they talk to,
it's an IV drip of Kool-Aid.
And then exactly, and like so you get a job as an ATF agent, and your grandpa's like, hey, that's cool. You're really making sure people are doing X, Y, and Z. And then and there's just so many people that. Like, what are these freaking papers that come out? And this is not necessarily ATF, but it's federal. Like, why we went into Afghanistan or Iraq.
Oh, yeah, the Afghan papers. I skimmed through those this past weekend since I had nothing better to do.
I mean, it's just blatant lies. And it's a top-down system, and that's what it is. It's this because it's orderliness. You take these people that are very regimented and they're not necessarily stupid. I don't think they're stupid at all. I think that I
think they're ignorant. They're not stupid.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're in a system where it rewards you for putting your nose down and just doing what you're told, like to an extreme. I mean, to the point where like they had to make laws after the Nazis to say, hey, don't do everything we tell you. But they get around it.
Yeah, I mean don't do everything I tell you, but if you want to move on to this company, do everything I tell you.
Yeah, and
it's like I said, it's the self-preservation thing. If I want to get more money, I'm going to do what boss man tells me.
I don't think it's money. I really don't think it's money, though. I think it's power or status.
Well, that too, but I mean, especially with what I'm experienced with now that I have buying power and having actual money to my name. When you have that money, you have power. It's a very enlightening. You have different problems now because you have that money.
We just talked about that.
And you have to either invest it, or you buy stupid shit, or you have to invest in your family. And what I've seen in most Midwestern males, because those are the ones I talk to, unfortunately, the Midwestern moms are about as deep as the last bath I took. But their job is typically to keep the kids healthy and educated and, groom them and clothe them. So the women's jobs are simple but more indirect, whereas the man's job, all they do is focus on work and how they can better their life for their family. And they normally will forget the fact that they also have to be a father. So instead of taking the time to help the kid do homework, teach them life lessons that they need to do, there's a lot of late Gen Xers and most of the baby boomers, or the early Gen Xers rather, the oldest ones, that they built their whole life, males especially, on getting a career and trying to better their family financially, that they forgot to raise their kids. So you've got all these basement dwellers. I have an uncle that's a basement dweller and 3 friends that are basement dwellers. They're in their mid-20s, late 20s, and have never experienced life because their father never taught them how to experience life. I was kind of forced into it. My parents got divorced. I either had the choice of being a basement dweller or getting the hell out of that negative environment. I got the hell out.
Well, I mean, you have that. I mean, it could be a decline in the family in America in general, but I think, I mean, this has been going on since before. I think all of the modern problems that we're talking about really, I mean, shit, the OSS was in the 40s, and then it turned into the CIA pretty quick.
Right.
I'm telling you, it's a system that's like, and you know, we're as human beings, we, especially men, we problem solve it.
Right.
You give someone status, you give someone purpose, and you give someone something to do. They're not really going to question it too much, especially if every single person that they ask about it is like, "Oh, you're helping society."
Right. It's that echo chamber of, since you work for the government is inalienably the higher power that we must kowtow to. That's the problem that I have with most baby boomers that were going to college in the 50s and 60s, because that was the most fascist level of the United States. Fuck the commies. Do not question the government. Embrace the fact that we're a booming economy and simply keep your nose down, work hard, don't ask questions. That was the most fascist era of the United States, in my opinion.
I'd really have to look over it. I actually have done a lot more research into exactly what fascism is, because I'm tired of people using the wrong definition.
That'd be a good.
Yeah, it would be.
That'd be good to define right now, because there are many layers to that onion, but
essentially fascism,
in the strictest term of fascism,
I think the best way, and I actually read a bunch of stuff of Benito Mussolini complaining about Nazis. So, and obviously the Italians started fascism.
Wasn't there a time that Benito in 44 he called a meeting with Hitler, and Hitler was so jacked up on meth and wanting to win the war that Benito called the meeting to cut himself out of the Axis powers, and Hitler was just so ready to go. He just, for an hour and a half, he just ran it, and Benito was like, "Well, I'm not getting out of this war." I think I read something about that.
I'm not surprised if that happened, but basically, true fascism, it really gets mired into a lot of definitions. True fascism is the group is more important than the individual, and that is the strongest tenet of fascism. So nationalism is
Right.
a tool of fascism. What would you call like a top, we control everything government. Totalitarianism is a tool that fascists use. I'm sorry, that's a
Right.
better way. So nationalism is a tool fascists use.
Yep.
Totalitarianism is a tool that fascists used, and but these are also not nationalism, communism for like the Russians. That was nationalism.
That's extreme nationalism, because
Exactly.
everyone was a comrade of
So-
the party,
so
the single party.
but that's like, so you're like, oh, fascists, they don't like XYZ, and it's like, okay, if you say, oh, you're a fascist because of, you know, you don't want foreigners coming in because they're foreign, that, I guess that would be technically fascism. You're like, I don't want brown people in here.
That'd be more of an ethnocentral nationalist ideal, because that's what I associate the 50s and 60s with, is extreme nationalism, not allowing any other thought process other than the central government is daddy, essentially. I mean, look at FDR and how he ruined this nation and creating the basically everything that we know today as the federal government. And then Eisenhower coming in as Daddy Mark II, Daddy Harder, the extreme allied power of Europe. You know, he was the head honcho over there, so he comes back as daddy to the United States. That's extreme nationalism. That's borderline fascism. I just call it fascism.
It's what I'm trying to emphasize here is that, like, you can be a fascist, and it is literally it's just not what you think it is. So you think of, like, you know, goose stepping down the Trump sorry,
The
Arc de Triomphe.
Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah, in Paris, and it's not exactly what like pure fascism is, because it's
Right.
its own extreme, and people like they just toss it out. So like I said, the group is more important than the individual. So it's not necessarily like, oh, we have groups of people coming into the country. It's like if you had a group within your country, say you're a lefty and you're like, oh, gays are ruining America, and they think that gays are ruining America for some reason. And so that would be like if someone said, hey, I want to get rid of gays because they're destroying America. That's fascism, because that's like, hey, they're people. I get it. Got to cut off the dead weight.
For the good of the whole, we must do that. And that was something that I mentioned to you, was with ancient Greece, which has fascinated for me for years, and especially with the mythology of what they had, basically the same thing Christianity had dwelled up out of nowhere. Well, I mean, it's not out of nowhere. They stole a lot of their ideas from other religions, but for the good of the polis was, I don't do Latin and Greek, and I really don't care that people know that, because it's not a language that we use. And the fact that people throw in all like I was listening to old Charlie Kirk throw out whatever the Latin phrase that the founding fathers put on the Constitution, and it's like, I don't care. You're not an intellectual that surpasses
pluribus anus.
Richard Cranium. I don't care that you know these stupid phrases, because it's just this drop in the bucket of what you think your intelligence is. But for the good of the polis was the city center. It also represented later on the democracy that they had ensued, and later emperor. Same thing as Rome. And the polis was an idea that they were all a single entity, and eventually that is what basically made Rome and Greek the shit pot for basically barbarians to run them over, who were much less advanced as far as technology goes, because they were too focused on the polis, and the individualism just died. Philosophy was dead by the time Rome and Greece fell, because they were focused so much on the polis that the socialist and fascist ideas, no one was employed. I mean, at the end of Rome, the mob was gigantic, because the government was trying to absorb as much as they could. So basically everyone was either a soldier or in the mob, because the farmers were the only middle class to speak of, and they were very small, and they were drafted in the military to go fight in bumfuck nowhere next to Hadrian's Wall in Great Britain. So they were away. The wife couldn't take care of the farm unless the boys were old enough, if they had kids. So a number of the time, the soldiers would come back. The wife had been raped and or murdered, or their entire land had been seized by the government because they couldn't pay taxes, and they became part of the mob. So the whole central power got so big and inflated, it thought it could take care of everything. The mob grew to the point that 98% of the population was in the mob, i.e. unemployed, and then barbarians just came in and stomped them. So groupthink is terrible. Fascism is terrible for progress. And it's happened numerous times in history, and everyone still thinks socialism is great. And that's socialism leads to communism, which leads to fascism 99.9% of the time.
It just, I mean, you can label a lot of things, and that's what makes me angry, is like, you can have a well thought out opinion on something, and someone could be like, well, that's technically fascism. And you say, like, okay, I guess, but then it could be fine. It's technically defined as fascism, and then you talk to somebody and you say, well, you're a fucking fascist, and then they think of Nazis. And that's where I'm tired of, like, I'm not saying I'm a fascist. I'm definitely not. I'm the farthest thing probably from a fascist, because I'm very much an individualist.
Right.
But
that's one thing people forget.
I'm really tired of people throwing the word around.
Well, they don't understand the history of fascism. That's the problem.
The basic thing that I'm worried about is top-down power. I'm tired of, you're like, oh, Donald Trump's going to use blah, 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 blah to do this, X, Y, Z. And you're like, okay.
You mean the thing Obama did?
A, the thing Obama did. B, if you're worried about Trump having as much power as he has, then that's what we're trying to say with Obama. You know, they're like, and fucking Joe Biden's walking around scandal-free administration. You're like, what about Fast and Furious? What about, I mean, literally, there's just one. What about when you're like, hey, we should sell guns to the cartel so we know where they're going because they're going to get them anyway. So let's just give them to them. And not just any guns. Let's give them the ones, like the 50 cals and the
Armor-piercing 5.7s.
Yeah, like we want pistols that can pierce the soft armor that they're Mexican. Regardless, I'm tired of people having too much power because, you know, you listen to I've been listening to a lot of Jacob Hornberger talk about the national security state, and they have extraordinate power. Extrajudicial. I mean, they've murdered American citizens, extrajudicial killings, extrajudice. I can't talk today. They've killed people outside of a court, just like, oh, well, they were a terrorist.
Right. Well,
And
that's the problem with the whole Patriot Act being rewritten, because I looked for a good month when the Patriot Act got re-proposed. I think it was in the House, and it eventually got earmarked into the giant spending bill that they just passed.
That omnibus shit.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I just know they got earmarked in, and the hypocrisy of that whole notion is that, okay, let's set up a hypothetical here. Majority of Democrats hate Trump, right? Every lefty turd burglar that I talked to at Thanksgiving and Christmas this year, all of them have Trump derangement syndrome times 10. Okay, so if that's true and they put all their faith in the politicians who have all the power, the politicians would have denied the vote for the Patriot Bill or the Patriot Act, because that would give Trump all the power in the world to say, okay, you're a domestic terrorist. We're going around the court system and we're throwing you in jail. Habeas corpus doesn't apply. Why would they, with a majority in the House, pass that bill if they didn't like Trump Daddy?
Because they're all in on it.
Yeah, we
in on
complain. Mainstream media complains that there's never a bipartisan effort. Bullshit. Every war we've ever been in has been a bipartisan effort because they're all going to make money.
Any bill spending money. That's what's incredible to me, is that, like, the Republicans say we need more defense, and then Democrats say we need more welfare. So they agree to just do both.
Yeah, just throw more money. Yeah, because it's not their money, so who cares?
No. Here's a funny thing too.
Well, before we move on to that, I'm very autistic and like definitions. So the first thing that pops up for fascism, and I've got another definition here, is a form of far-right authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and of the economy, which came to prominence in the early 20th century Europe. So you think imperial Germany, the dual monarchy of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You think extreme socialism of both the communist parties, the Bolshevik Revolution that became the Soviet Union, and you think the Nazi Party, which was also far-left socialism that eventually went to far-right nationalism. That's basically what I see fascism as, and that's why I said in the early 50s and 60s, we were basically there, because you didn't question USA. Yeah, exactly. You didn't question that.
And here's the thing, I don't like the scale either that they're using, because it's not linear. It's literally like the best line that I've seen is a horseshoe shape, because far left and far right are extremely close to each other. Yep. They just have different color flags.
So there's the second definition is a political philosophy, movement, or regime such as that of a fascisti. Okay, that wasn't helpful.
It's a group.
That exalts nation and often race above the individual. That stands for centralized autocratic government headed by a dictator or leader, and severe economic and social regimentation, forcible suppression of opposition by the government. So, large central power, either side of the spectrum.
It's, I mean, because it literally, and this is why I get upset when I hear the wrong definition. And I think those are both biased definitions too, because the idea of fascism is not what came, like, they had this one, it's just like fucking communism. You have this wonderful little idea, and look at it on a plate, it looks awesome.
Oh man, in a tribe of 12 people, this works great.
Yeah, so you have this philosophy, and then like I said, it gets used, and they use different tools that allow them their base to accumulate power, and then they end up putting 6 million people in ovens.
Yep.
But so I don't necessarily agree with those. I've not done enough research into this to truly know, but the stuff that I did look into, that's what I saw is like, look, fascism is literally the group is more important than the individual, and so they will, like, hey, let's get rid of these Jews.
Well, that's the way I see fascism is you don't even have to be a nationalist to have an autocrat, because the way I see it is especially with the far left movement that we have in the United States, which is actually really small. It's just that the media keeps flaunting them, fluffing the feathers, as it were. They're just willing to sacrifice their rights for a greater power that they think will be the end to all oppression, as it were. So it's their what's the Roman afterlife? What the hell is that?
Disney World?
No, that's capitalist afterlife. That is a money-making machine.
You have to look that up.
It is
Because
oh, come
Mount
on.
Olympus.
They
don't go there.
That's
where they
Greek.
go. I don't give a shit. It's all European. Italy.
God, this is pissing me off because they made a movie about it, about a fascist entity that had like a moon base, and everyone else was left on Earth where all the trash was. It was a pretty decent book that I read. Okay, for fuck's sake.
What was the book called?
The book was called The Name of the Roman Afterlife. Name of Roman Afterlife. Maybe if I put Roman Heaven, it'll do it.
Anyway, the
Elysium.
Jesus Christ! I have the headphones on and just got screamed out of it.
So my idea of fascism is a bunch of sheep of people essentially giving up their rights for an Elysium that they see through their rose-colored glasses and say, okay, if I sacrifice my rights to the government, Daddy, the government, will take care of me so that we can create Elysium and have no more oppression, which is not how the world works.
No, I don't. That's just communism. Literally, it's literally in its truest form. It's the group's more important than the individual. So you say,
right, because that's the ultimate sacrifice
here's our goal,
is for the group.
Here's our goal. So it's very close, but I don't know if I can really define this very well. But
that's why I looked up the definition, because honestly, life is messy and you can't really have a perfect definition for anything.
But I mean, it's the word fascist.
Fascisme
comes from the Latin word fasces, which is literally like a bundle of sticks, because if you can
faggot.
Yes, it's derived from the same word. If you
so fascist or faggots.
Touche.
The more you know.
Because the concept is, with one twig you break, but as the mighty faggot,
because you have a greater cross-sectional area and the area moment of inertia is higher.
Yes, exactly. Just like that. But, maybe like tone down the autistic elements of it. Anyway, I'm tired of hearing like Donald Trump. You say, "Oh, Donald Trump's a fascist."
Daddy.
And you're like, "Okay, let's stop and think about it." Maybe he loves Israel too much,
which is a problem,
because
$3.8 billion.
$3.8 billion. $3.8 billion with a B. That's right. 1,000 million. 3.8 thousand.
Something that would take you over 100 lifetimes to make.
Yes, exactly. And we just give that to them because they're dope or something. I don't know. Because they're awesome,
Marty, we have to go back.
Anywho, you'd have to cite chapter and verse on whether Donald Trump's a fascist. I think he's a nationalist. I think he's also just the captain of all boomers. I mean, if he would have been drafted into Vietnam, he would be King Boomer. But because he dicked out with bone spurs, if he would have gone there and saw a little bit of combat, king of the boomers.
I agree.
Fucking
he would just
done steaks with ketchup.
He would have ended up being John McCain. he was kind of an interesting case.
Fuck John McCain. And fuck John McCain's foreign policy. Holy shit.
And fuck Mitch McConnell while we're at it.
He's a turtle. Anyway, I don't like Mitch McConnell. I don't like John McCain.
I don't like neocons, and I don't like Democrats.
I don't like Dan Crenshaw. I used to really like him, and then it's like
I liked him until he got elected.
it's like, oh, it's John McCain part 2.
John McCain harder with one less eye.
Yeah, exactly. It literally is John McCain without another eye.
He's a space pirate. Space ISIS.
Yeah. Fuck you, Space ISIS.
I mean, even just thinking about the Space Force, that is a way that Trump and all of his degenerates that work around him are growing the power of the federal government. I mean, why do we need a Space Force? Why do we have that branch of government that has over 100,000 workers monitoring space? Like, it's absurd.
Are you talking about NASA?
No, there's another entity within the government that their entire job is just to monitor space, and there's like 100,000 people in it.
Wait, no, NORAD?
Probably.
Yeah, that's some weird stuff too. And these, like, I think you had dropped a hint of this earlier.
North American Aerospace Defense Command. NORAD.
Yeah, you had dropped a hint of this earlier. This is all elected. These are all appointed.
Yeah, they're not.
They're not elected. No one is. I mean, literally they're picked. They're hand selected. And you know what? This is just like these people in Congress. You know, a new president comes in, same fucking people that top all these administrations.
Yep. Well, I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi. She's been on both sides of the fence for the better part of 30 years. I mean,
yeah,
she is the queen of the liberals somehow, and she was behind the Patriot Act.
Oh, dude, I'm starting to think that this Donald Trump presidency has been a meticulously planned out distraction.
Right.
Because
everyone who has mentioned that, oh, Hillary was supposed to win, maybe it's a farce. Maybe they're trying to make it think that we are winning when Trump Daddy takes away our bump stocks because reasons.
Yeah, slowly encroaching. And the thing is like, this is such... I mean, he literally couldn't have been a perfect candidate to be so fucking... you're either, like... Because the average person is either, fuck Donald Trump, he's the worst, he's a racist, sexist, and he's orange and a peach. Or it's, oh, Trump's the best, you don't like him, get out of here, libtard. And it's like, okay, there's 80% of the population. Maybe even 90. It's one of those two people is like they love Trump or they absolutely hate him for being, if you're a lefty, you hate Donald Trump. Boom. You can do whatever. Don't breathe through your nose right into the microphone.
I forgot to move my mic before it's too late.
Anyway, I'm not done with this statement. You have 80-90% of the population worried about like how much they hate Donald Trump, and it's the distraction. It's literally a distraction. You know, when you do fighting, you got to set someone up for something. You know, you do a little jab, 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 and then up comes the right. You're setting something up because you're putting smoke in front of it, so you can do whatever you want behind the scenes. Support the troops. No, just kidding.
God, I hate that phrase. Yes, let's support the military-industrial complex. Sounds like a great idea. I don't necessarily think that 80% of the country is fuck Trump or love Trump, because there are a lot of people that live in the smaller red states that they are just trying to support their family and don't have time to look into this stuff. And then on the other side of the scale, Beard and I were called radicals more than twice over both of the holiday seasons by usually women, because women are more predisposed to being left because of their, sympathy instead of empathy ideas. So
sensation glands.
Yeah, they're more likely to be emotionally entrapped in something like a utopia, whereas men are a lot more empathetic and logical when it comes to that sort of thing.
On average, folks, don't email me.
Don't read too much into that, but all of the lefties that I know in my family are chicks. And that's just the way it is. And I live in bumfuck nowhere Midwest, where all of the counties are red except for around the major cities that are blue, because you stack enough stupid people next to each other, they tend to turn blue. Which, don't get me wrong, I think the percentage of dumb people in rural Midwest and United States in general, the percentage of stupid people are the same. They're just spread out so they get to do whatever they want. when you stack too much stupid people on top of each other, you have to make more rules.
I heard it. I don't know where, but it made perfect sense. I have an aunt who's very liberal, and she was like complaining that her neighbor, 'cause she lives in a town, complaining that her neighbor was burning leaves. She's like, I just can't stand the smell. I was like, that, and it all made sense. You're like, okay, if you lived a little bit farther apart, this would be a non-issue.
This would not be an issue.
Then all of a sudden, it's like, she's like, not necessarily, she wasn't, I mean, she went and talked to him about it and was like, okay, can you figure out a schedule? But like, all you got to do is be like, you know what? I'm going to be non-confrontational, and I think we should go ahead and pass something that says you can't burn in the city. So now we got to put it in bags. And then it's like, well, who does the bags? It's like, well, I don't want to pay for it.
Now you have the beauty and bureaucracy and waste of tax money that is the government.
So yeah, you live next to people. I mean, you live in an apartment building. You can't just blare your speakers. And there's people that just don't know or don't give a shit and will just blare their speakers without someone coming in and being like, hey, you can't do that.
Woefully selfish and ignorant. We made a great loop back to the start of this conversation. But yeah, that's basically what it is. You stack enough stupid people who are belligerent
you'll reach the moon
and or ignorant together. you stack enough people close enough to each other, eventually people. And that's the problem is when you get a bigger government, you degrade anything that could have been a community because you have that higher sense of order that you must now kowtow to. You don't have a community where people are all on the same playing field. And that's what I hate when every time one of those leftist women talk about, oh, we have to have more laws for more background checks. Like, no fuckface. Let's talk to each other. But you can't because, they always revert to the logic loop of the leftists that, oh, if you're not wrong, you're bigoted, or you just want a violent society, or you're the problem. They just project all these issues instead of trying to find root cause. That's why I hate the left.
I've never had a conversation that was with someone that was anti-gun where I wasn't interrupted
1,000 times.
Yeah, and I've never, but I can hear someone talk and just be fine because I can walk away and be like, well, fuck you. Hey, fuck you.
Well, we don't have that entitlement which is what they think is closure. We don't need closure from these people. We don't need them to be approved. We don't need the approval of this other person because we've self-reflected enough to know, okay, what I can get from this conversation, I might learn something. If they don't want to find common ground and have this conversation, really that's their loss. That's what I've found in most situations. It's your loss that you are thinking that way because we have so much information we could exchange and learn from each other. Instead, you want to be confrontational and call me a bigot. Okay, that's why you're never going to grow as a human being.
Yeah, that's and I just haven't argued with people in a while, like face to face, so I'm not sure, but it seems like they get entangled too much.
Emotionally, usually.
Well, not just emotionally, just like you're like, okay, I think guns should be for this, and then they bring up something completely unrelated. You're like, hey, I think I should be allowed to carry a gun anywhere I go. Mm. Literally in the school, in an airport, I think I should be able to have a gun on me. They're like, and then just immediate deflection to something that's gun related. And they're like, well, what if a kid gets a hold of it?
Well, here's a classic deflection is I said that at Freedom Day. Leftist turd speaks up. Oh, what are you going to bring one in the courthouse? Yeah, I'm going to bring him in the courthouse. Oh, so you're not going to agree with the judge? You go, oh, fuck you, judge, and shoot him? Like, where did this hypothetical... Are you projecting your own thoughts on me? Because that's what it sounds like.
A lot of it, too. Like, anytime I hear someone say, like, look, there's... We've talked about this before, too. There's a crazy part of the population. The more people we get in this country, the more weird shit happens, just by statistics alone. So, with those people aside, you get someone come up to you and you're like, why do you own one of those guns? You just want to kill people. Like all you do is just think about killing people, don't you? And it's like, I just like how it sounds and how it feels, and
I like mechanics. I'm an engineer.
And
there's a lot of things I like about guns. I've never had the thought of shooting someone in my entire life. Now, I've had some weird dreams where my brain goes into this weird defensive mode.
Dude, really quick aside, I was going to text you this, but would it make any sense? Last night, I had a dream that I won a house at an auction for really cheap, and it was just full of awesome shit, including a gun. It was a gun that shot 5.7. It was a revolver that shot. It was 5 at a time, 5.7.
A pepper box.
A pepper box. So it was five FN 5.7 shells per, and it had the 5 rotating. So you had 5.
You had a puckle gun that shot 5.57s at a time?
And
my God.
And it had a flap made out of rabbit fur to load it.
That is the most
So, like,
badass thing I've ever heard.
Literally, like the cylinder would come out, then you have to lift like it had no function. It just had to lift this like fur.
Oh God,
in
dreams
order to
are
load
weird.
it, and then put it back, and then you could cover it. And I was so fascinated with this gun in my dream, and I was just like, this is and like I found it in the house. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. It shoots 5, and oh my God! And I was like, I think in my dream I was like trying to call you or something.
Oh my God.
But I just kept, like, everything in this house. This is what sucks with dreams. Everything in the house is something I want or would like, oh, they got whole flight suits and jumpsuits in here and a generator. And like, oh my God, he left all his tools and this is amazing. This is like $1,000 they spent on this. Oh my God. But this like, and I remember shooting it too, and it was really smooth. But can you? So I would really like some help drawing up a revolver that shoots 5 shots at a time and rotates and shoots 5 shots 5
Dude,
times.
as soon as I make all this money from flipping guns, we're buying a Bridgeport and we're making this happen.
With the rabbit fur on it. It's got to have the rabbit fur.
Have the rabbit fur.
I don't know if it was like, I don't know, dude. It was just so weird. It was like, this is like the weirdest combination of boomer bullshit. It's such a weird dream.
That's very strange.
But I was very excited to tell you about it, and I just came up with that. So I don't even know what we were talking about before.
Leftist cunts projecting and having weird thoughts.
Oh yeah, I've never been at the range and looked over and been like, I'm gonna shoot that fucker, or like.
Well, I mean, especially with USPSA, which is probably the most extreme of shooting sports, because you're running at full speed with a firearm, surrounded by other men
with firearms.
And if you really think about it, yeah, you could probably shoot somebody, but when you're in that environment, unless you isolate yourself, which never happens because gun people are the coolest people. I mean,
sometimes they're the most suspicious group of people I hang out with.
I mean, especially with the goofy boomers that you deal with.
Not what they do. They just have that like suspicion of like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna like? I think gun people have that like, oh, someone else has a gun, they're gonna fuck up, and I'm gonna like. There's like, hey, don't put that there. You're gonna point that at me. It's gonna go off accidentally. Like,
right?
It's not a.
Well, it's a self-awareness, really.
Yeah, I don't really feel that way because I feel like if we're competing in this event, then hopefully, you know.
Well, that's the idea of every armed citizen, really. I mean, if everyone's armed, you're not gonna get away with anything. And I mean,
look at that fucking church in Texas.
Yeah, look at the church shooting. If
6 seconds.
If everyone was armed in that room, it could have been 3 seconds. I mean, the dude who's standing right next to him could have blasted him.
Well, I mean, it would have taken somebody. Quit breathing in the. I just hear. I mean, I don't know what you were doing. Anyway, it like, what are you gonna? Obviously, I'm really disappointed that even one person died. Any situation, but like it really does bother me because, like, I'll go to church with my mom sometimes because whatever. But all I'll do the whole time is just like, it's like, man, that door. They're probably gonna come from this door. They're gonna go from this door.
Right.
I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna dive over this and like.
It's a certain self-awareness and accountability for yourself that people who don't shoot guns around other people don't have because. I just recently, this is a fun tie-in, I got a Nambu pistol, and they're renowned for malfunctions. And there's a lot of people on YouTube that are amateurs shooting these guns that really shouldn't be handling these guns. And TFB TV, which is a big gun channel, the dude almost shot himself because I teach women who don't have the upper body strength to pinch and pull with their forearms. I teach them to hold it against their body, point the gun down range, and pull with their shoulders. This dude, big forearms, somehow couldn't figure out how to hold the gun properly. So when he was doing it, the barrel was pointed at his forearm. His arm slips. Thankfully, instead of going out away from his body, it pulled towards his body. They tried to play it off like it didn't touch the trigger. He obviously hit the trigger. The Nambus have a 2.5-pound trigger. You touch the thing, it goes off. His top hand slips. His pinky gets caught in the trigger well. The gun goes off. The round just goes right past his elbow. And he drops the gun because he's an idiot instead of holding on to it. And it's like, I saw video after video after video of people handling these guns, and as soon as the firearm malfunctions, they look like there's a giant dildo standing in front of them like, what is that? What do I do? With competent USPSA people who have bought guns, shot guns, they have stovepipes, they have failures to feed, they figure out how to do the remedial action to fix that. Normal people who don't even shoot guns have no idea what a stovepipe is. So you give them a gun, it malfunctions, they look at you like you got a dick grown out of your forehead. What do I do now? It's the same thing with people who are uncomfortable on guns. They're literally just ignorant. And there's nothing wrong with that unless you're not willing to learn. And that's what most lefties, another great story. One of the lefty cousins that I have is married to a soy boy, and he came to me this break over Christmas, and he's like, man, I've been working. He just got his teaching license. He just went through the whole where you got a student teach and all that stuff. He's like, man, I was teaching in the inner city of whatever bumfuck Midwestern city. It was like a 90% black classroom. And this wasn't even high school. He was in middle school getting physically assaulted by black students. And he was like, man, I don't know what I thought before, but I live in the same city that these kids live. And I live in the same city block as these kids live. And if they have those violent tendencies at school, I can't imagine what they're growing up around. So I want you to teach me how to use a firearm. Because he finally figured out what it means to be the head of a household and have fear of what he could lose.
Yeah.
So he came to an authority, me, of firearms, and said, I want to know how to protect myself. And it was one of the most genuine conversations I've had with this guy, because the dude was in the theater, like real nutty lefty theater dude. And then he finally had that tower moment as a 38-year-old male. Man, I need to do something about protecting my family, because he's got 2 kids that are less than 10 years old. And I was like, yeah, that is the responsibility of a gun owner that you've never experienced until you figured out that there are a lot of shitty people out there.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable what even I walk through life very, like I had the opportunity to conceal in Missouri, and I took the class and everything, just never did. But I think the biggest thing was just to know the laws, and they have the ability to, because I drove out of state so much that it's like, man, I don't want to deal with this. But especially into certain states, but
Right, depending on the state.
if you go east a little bit, it gets a little hairy, blue hairy.
Especially north and east.
Yes. It is a responsibility that you must. I mean, you have a family, you got to protect them, and I don't like. Not that's what I'm saying is you argue with people and they're like, well, you want all these guns. What if a kid gets hold of it? I'm like, look, I guarantee you, if I had kids, they would not touch. There'd be no opportunity. I'm so paranoid, even at my own house, of where my firearms are,
Right.
and being unloaded. Because like, I think my dad got a gun from his stepdad when he died, and he went to the safe, and every single gun was loaded. And you're like, why?
Well, I mean, even my father, he never had a gun. I mean, when I was born, the same chief of police that did our concealed carry training where we live, he gave him a gun because he knew, like, hey, you're a dad now. You need to be able to protect your family. My dad stayed woefully ignorant. Never shot it once. One of my first YouTube videos, that Smith & Wesson 6904, that was the first time that gun had ever been shot. And it didn't work because, 90s guns from Smith & Wesson tend to not work well. But sent it back to Smith & Wesson, and they didn't charge me anything, which was really cool because they could tell it had never been touched. But I don't understand how my father could have been woefully ignorant of how to. I mean, he lived in bumfuck nowhere, Midwest, so he didn't really have to worry about inner city violence. But even where I live, it's on the outskirts of a major city, and there's enough people around me that I don't trust any of you. I'm gonna have a gun on me.
I don't know what I think it's just it's a partial willful ignorance, and it's also like I think the average person is good, but then you look at these people, they're just crazy people, probably on Prozac or some kind of medication,
some amphetamine,
or it's something that old Daddy Pharma gave them, and they decide for whatever goddamn reason, like, I'm just going to be evil today and walk into and just start killing people indiscriminately. And that's where it's like, okay, that guy in that church just recently, he was a felon. He couldn't have a gun.
Legally could not own a firearm.
He couldn't so he wouldn't have passed a NICS background check.
Nope.
Anyone who sold him a gun would have been will now be a felon.
Yep.
And I mean,
and that's
he's still got a gun.
That's tying back my entire argument to what I think fascism is the people on the left who want to sell away all of their rights for the daddy state don't understand the repercussions of that action, because as soon as you give up that right, those people can now leverage themselves to where they're going to do illegal shit regardless of what you have, right?
Yeah.
They are going to do what they need to get their job done, which is evil shit. I mean, look at California. They just reduced the fine and jail time for misdemeanor theft, and they raised the bar for what?
It's like $950.
Which is an insane amount of money. So what happened? Immediately, within the week, more theft. You remove accountability from yourself. You remove accountability from everyone. Give it to the daddy state and expect them to take care of you. You don't understand the human variable. You don't understand the human mind. You do not understand that not everyone has that wonderful sound in the back of your head that says, do what's good for everyone.
And you're taking away options for me to handle it, because I'll tell you right now, no one, if I have a gun on me, no one that's not supposed to get shot is going to get shot.
Right.
Like, I'll tell you right now, there might be some errant shots at a bad guy, and I don't even want to, like, that's the thing with, like, PTSD. To treat PTSD, you have to realize the horror that humankind can produce, and you have to, like, encounter that part of yourself, because then that's what Jordan Peterson talks about, is like, you could have been, everyone likes to think that they'd be the people helping the Jews out of Germany if you were a German. Like, no, you would more than likely be a Nazi concentration camp guard.
Self-preservation.
Exactly. So you have to be able to encounter this, and, like, I want nothing less in my entire life than to have to shoot somebody.
Yeah, taking a life is something that I would not want to have to have.
I would rather just have a firearm on me and be able to pull it out and yell at someone, be like, "Fuck you, put the fucking gun," and, like, cause them to be like, "Oh, hey, bullets are gonna come my way unless I stop." I would much, but I want that option. I don't want to be. I mean, think about it. Like, I don't have a gun on me right now. I might have one near me, but I don't think it's loaded. If someone came in here right now, we'd kind of be fucked, right? And now we put that on ourselves for not having a firearm accessible, but you're just immediately, like, I don't think people realize, you think, you go through your early teens and 20s, you think you're invincible, and then I think as I get older, the more I realize just how vulnerable a human being is. And it's not being aware of your surrounding. It's like anything can kill you. Like, you throw a rock hard enough, you fall the wrong way.
Yeah,
you're fucking dead.
Well, I experienced that vulnerability very young, so I matured pretty quick and understood that stuff at a very young age. But think of the hero Jack Wilson, the guy who stopped that shooting. I had to look up his name. Think of what he's going through mentally right now.
Yeah,
and he's a hero. There's no doubt about that. But he still has repercussions from that, because maybe he gets sued civilly. He's going to have PTSD if he's the person I think he is. And now he's accountable for the loss of life. That is something he has to live with the rest of his life.
I think it's such a tricky thing, because, but he was a cop, wasn't he?
I know he was at least a firearms instructor and possibly a retired police officer.
Because I would imagine if he had been a cop, he might have shot someone before. And I think being a cop shooting someone is a lot hairier of a situation than, like, holy shit, someone is just indiscriminately shooting people.
Right.
I'm going to pull my gun out and shoot him. Like, but the incredible thing about empathy is that other animals like wolves don't kill other wolves, and bears don't kill it. Like they fight, but they don't kill each other. And there is something innate in our biology where we feel bad for killing our own kind,
Right.
right? And that's even reflected on animals. Like I deer hunt, but I don't torture animals. I don't kill an animal inhumanely, and I don't feel bad about killing an animal though. I do it humanely, but you still have that sense of like that was a living being. You can reflect it onto yourself. Regardless, you feel bad for killing even someone that absolutely deserves it. And I hope nothing but he's 100% justified in what he did.
Right.
It wasn't excessive. That he was. I mean, everything about it was completely ideal. The only thing that I think might have made him a little bit better is if someone hadn't died. But that guy, he just like literally just went bang and started shooting.
Yep.
So,
Well, and if you think about it, you and I obviously see that as a justified shooting. There are already leftist politicians in Texas saying that no one in that building should have guns. I can't understand that level of ignorance. I can't understand how stupid you could be to think that, you all should have just been martyrs for the cause.
no, I think their thought is, and it's a very dumb thought, is be like, well, if there weren't any guns, no one would have been shot. It's like, okay, fuckface.
Then we'd all have knives. Oh, we'll take the knives away like in Great Britain. Then we'll have fists. That is a deadly weapon.
Like, okay, we're just gonna like, oh well, if there weren't any guns anywhere, it's like, all right, so we just live in this magical kingdom where
Elysium, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And another thing Jordan Peterson likes to say is when people are like, well, that wasn't real communism. What they're really saying is, if I was in charge,
Right.
I was in charge of everything, and it would have all worked out smoothly, and I would have ushered in the utopia.
The grand delusion of grandeur of the left.
And I would have ushered in the utopia, and everything would have been perfect. And that is the most wrong thing that you could ever think.
That's the highest level of entitlement and ignorance that I see in the left, is that they are holier than thou. Everything you say is wrong because I am virtually impossible and impenetrable when it comes to my morality, and everything you see in your want to defend yourself with firearms is evil because I know best and I am the left. Therefore, I'm bigger than you.
Like, I just don't get it. Like, people hunt with ARs. People shoot ARs all the time. I've put thousands, probably about 1,000 through both my guns. You've shot on God knows.
Probably I've loaded. I know I've reloaded at least 16,000 rounds, so I've probably shot around 20,000 rounds of 223.
Yeah, and it's just it's never gonna be used in an unjustified manner.
I've shot over 30,000 rounds of ammunition, and so far my kill count is 7 skunks and 4 coyotes and 2 possum.
There you go.
That's my kill count. Never even pointed a gun at a human except for once by accident, and I did push-ups for it. I remember that. That's the thing. I remember the time I had my one muzzle sweep on somebody. It was at Freedom Day. My pistol was locked open. The slide was back. I went to put it away in a holster, and I turned around instead of holstering and then turning around. And that's the range rule at Freedom Day is you muzzle sweep someone, you do push-ups, you do it again, you're done. I remember that specific incident because I have the mental aptitude to say, this is a tool that can do damage. If I pointed at something that I don't want to, and something, God forbid, happens, I am now accountable for that. The left wants to push accountability away from the individual to the group.
That it still blows my mind when I have a friend who's, I don't know how old she is, but 2 or 3 years younger than me, and her boyfriend bought her a Smith & Wesson Shield for Christmas, and she's so excited. Oh, no, so we go and shoot it, and just the way she's like holding it in her hands, and she didn't initially point it at anybody, but she just walked out with just the gun, like it wasn't in a case or anything. Walked out, she was in her pocket or something. Like, oh look at it, and I'm just like, I don't get. Because I am so painfully aware of where my muzzle is, except a little bit on USPSA,
That's because you're at half staff and full adrenaline.
As I'm so focused on the targets, and because like when I first started, I was so aware of 180. I was so worried about breaking it.
Right.
And now it's more like,
how close can I get to that to
you know
increase my time or increase my score?
The only close one that I had was when I was reloading, and that was like it maybe. And on top of that, that wasn't me like pointing the gun that way.
Right.
Like I'm talking people, you give them a gun
and they just start pointing it
like nothing, and then
belligerently.
So she's walking around with this gun. I'm like, hey, let me see that gun. I immediately check if it's loaded because I'm like, okay, cool. And then, but another thing that really, really bothers me is they're like, oh, slides down. There's bullets in here. Okay, we need to make sure no one gets hurt. Rack the slide back. And they start pointing around like nothing's wrong. I'm like, you are a thumb and trigger finger switch away from me getting shot in the stomach right now. Fuck you. Turn that thing around. Like,
yeah.
What? Oh, it's safe now. Like, that's what really gets me is like, it can go off. Okay. And it's not an accident, but it is like, you know what I'm saying? It's not just going to randomly go off.
It's negligence. That's why the accidental discharge is a very poor description of what a negligent discharge is, because guns do not go off for no reason. Now, old guns like the Type 94 that had the external disconnector that you push on the side of the frame, yes, that would accidentally go off. But when you are a user of a firearm, you must have the personal accountability to know your firearm. So that's something I've never done a video on. Now that I think about it, is when I get a firearm, I literally take that non-marring hammer, the watch hammer, or the punch hammer with the brass ends on it. I just start tapping the thing. I see if it's drop safe. I test the gun, and I don't know why I've never done it on camera. Now that I think about it, I put it in a holster, see if the trigger's going to snag up in the holster if I ever use a holster, because yes, it's a production gun, and it's supposed to work. Custom guns are a whole different world. But think about how many times your car has been recalled.
Yeah.
Think about how many times your house needs maintenance, and it's just something you don't think about. How many times does a gun age, like the Stevens that I just bought? Did I show you that little pump 22? I'm guessing it was a negligent Bubba trying to be a gunsmith, but technically speaking, if you wear a sear surface down enough, it can polish and remove material to the point that it might slip. Yes. Will it happen with a Glock? Absolutely not. Trust me on that one, because it's a very heavy sear engagement. However, mechanical things fail. Even if the slide's locked back, even if the magazine only has one round in it, some active genius might just happen out of nowhere that the slide release drops and that sear might have just a little bit too much play in it. As soon as you drop the slide, the gun goes off. Like, you don't want to take that chance.
No. And that's why I was upset about it. And like, and then just the finger in the trigger guard too. Like, she was holding it, and she couldn't use her thumb to release the slide with the slide release. Mm-hmm. And so I was teaching her to slingshot it in there, because, you know, especially if she's going to just have it loaded laying around or in a holster.
Right.
She can slingshot it. Fuck it. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, she should maybe eventually learn how to. And I was upset because I really wanted to sit down for like an hour and just dry fire and, hey, do this and maybe do this. And when you're shooting, you know, hey, if you empty a mag at somebody, fucking reload. You have a problem with it, and I could, you know, maybe manipulate and get some weird malfunctions so she kind of sees what's going on. But like,
Right.
But, you know, and at first I thought it was the easy slide. So I was like, oh, this is cool, because it is a problem for women of upper body strength. Yep. And I'm like, all right, go ahead and rack the slide. And so she just immediately had her finger in the trigger guard, and she was trying to pull. I'm like, no, like, see that? Mm-hmm. That's how things you don't want to get shot. Right there. And I mean, I just don't freaking get it. I just don't get it.
Well, that's the thing is,
that's the go button.
When I bought my first gun, I had already watched 3 years of YouTube and learned all those things. When people buy a gun nowadays, or especially if they get gifted one, they don't do the due diligence and self accountability to actually learn what they're dealing with. I'm an engineer. That is actually rare that I actually understand the technical aspects of most things I'm working with. That was one thing that I experienced at the Tack Shack 2 weeks ago. Gal came in. She just screamed greenhorn, not because she was a girl. The severe lack of confidence in the way she walked in the gun store, the way she was speaking with one of the guys at the counter. And she brought in her new Taurus G2C in the box that it came in, not in like a range bag or anything. Like, that girl's never shot that gun. Hey, Joe, I'm going back with her. He's like, okay. Went out to the stall, obviously skittish because every time a gun went off, one of those. Yeah, right. And I took the gun out of the box, showed her everything, safety, slide release, trigger. I was like, okay. Point the gun at the target. There's no bullets in it. I know. Just point the gun at the target. Pull the trigger immediately. Pulls the trigger and lets her finger out. Okay, I'm going to teach you something. Pull the trigger. Hold your finger to the back. You cycle the action. You point it back at the target. Pull your finger out. Feel the reset. Pull the trigger. All of that to us, 101. To her, dildo on my forehead. Had no idea what any of that was. I was like, oh, greenhorn. Okay. Explain it to her again. I actually left the range so I could not yell at her. That is something that I've inherently never been. I've never, since middle school, gone into something completely blind. I'll go to YouTube. I'll go to Google.
Yeah.
I'll try to learn. I'll try to learn at least a little bit. This gal never shot a gun before, ever, much less that Taurus.
Much less a pistol. Why would you start with a pistol?
Concealed carry. She wanted to defend herself.
Fair enough.
She had just had an incident where she broke up with a boy and, wanted to defend herself. I'm like, great.
More power to her.
That's awesome. I'm happy you're here. Here's the card of Good Shepherd. Go take some classes. Good intention, right?
Yeah.
Wanted to buy a gun to defend herself. Horrible execution.
Yeah. I don't think people... Okay, guns aren't that complicated. I mean, it's literally like driving a car, but
Well, Uncle Bugatti, you see...
There's no...
We are above average intelligence. I don't know if you knew that.
No, but it's still not... Dude, they teach way too many people in the Army. It's not... Look, it's pretty fucking simple. I mean, especially...
There are people that leave infantry that are married to the rifles that don't know how they work.
Doesn't matter. They know how to clear malfunctions. They know how to shoot.
I'm going to disagree with you for now, but go on.
Anyway, point one is that, like, when you say this, the ignorance and not, when you have a gun in your hands, it's like that's what your focus is. Mm-hmm. Not like, oh, this is really cool. Like, no. Okay, the first thing is it's not pointing anything. Second thing is your finger is on the trigger, and then you start. It's like, I just don't understand. Like, all I got to do is point it down range, and then I can dick around and do whatever I want. And then, like, okay, now it's time to shoot. Now, okay, magazine's in there. Hey, look, it's live. It's ready to go.
Right.
But I mean, like a trigger reset. How do you? I just don't get how you take someone that's like, you're like, okay, you shoot a gun, and you're like, bang, 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 right? Okay, it's a switch, right? You ever used a switch before and you click? And then when you let go, it also clicks. It's the back click.
It's called tactile response.
Yeah, and it's I think it's appreciated now, but because anyway, I just don't understand how you can't explain that to people. You're like, hey, check out the reset on that trigger. The people you think are gun people, and they'll just pull the trigger, then they'll take their finger out and they'll rack it again, and then
they have no idea.
And it's like no, like pull the trigger, hold it, rack it, and then let go, and they'll rack it, and they'll just let go like almost immediately.
Yeah,
and then they'll pull it again, and like, yeah, it's a good trigger, and you're like, but like
you're completely missing all of the concepts that we're trying to show you.
Like that fucking what kind of trigger is that on mine? I can't even remember.
Alpha
Apex.
There you go.
Apex. I love you, Apex. Anyway,
sponsors.
The trigger pull was like only a pound less, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a pound less. So you pull the stock trigger, you pull this one. They're like, oh, and everyone's like, oh, it's so awesome. Like,
That's not
it's
even the most. That's not the most endearing
the
part.
cool part of
Yeah.
it. It's God damn it. Actually, it's right here. I think. That's not the fun part of it. Like, you're missing out on the fun. And see, it's pretty simple, right? Oh, look, there's a firearm. Oh, let's
Keep it pointed away from the other guy in the room. Wow, I'm so proud of you. Make sure it's empty. Chamber's empty, magazine's empty. Look at that. Safe gun.
It's done. All right. We're gonna just simulate it.
Drop the slide.
All right. We're gonna attempt to record the sound of the reset. So
ASMR reset.
hey, got it. All right. I'm gonna make sure it's again. And you know what? So something I just did right there. I know it's not loaded, but I just had that little tiny moment of doubt. And you know what I did?
Those ammo gremlins may have slipped one in.
You know what I did? I fucking just checked again.
Yep.
Because guess what? Nothing went off.
Nothing went off. Pull the slide back. Feel the reset.
Ooh, it's awesome. But and then with this trigger especially, you cannot hit it at an angle. We've talked about this before, and my dad went to shoot, and he's like, the trigger's not working. I'm like, you have to pull it straight back. And then he proceeds to drill a soda can like 3 times. I was like, what? And I haven't shot this. I shot it the other day. I have not shot in a long time. It's going to be basically ground zero.
I was impressed that I shot USPSA last week with my Janik after I haven't shot it for 2 months, and I still beat everybody.
Well, I mean, you dove way deeper into it than I did, so.
Yeah, I went balls deep.
And
So if we could summarize this entire conversation, it would be that everyone should be a gun owner so they can learn accountability, right?
Yeah, I think you should buy a gun. You go out, do slight reviews. And you know what? Everyone either hates or loves or has some opinion about Glock. Fuck it, go buy a Glock. Why not? Go buy it, or maybe start with something like the Canics or something like
Canic, a Walther CCP. Go to the gun shop, or what you really should do is go to gun.deals and search by 9mm and search by cheapest, because you might not be a gun person. If you don't want to drop $500 into a Glock, buy a 9mm that's $250. Get it shipped to your local FFL. Pay a $20 transfer fee. Buy a box of ammo. Congratulations, you're $300 in.
Yeah. And I mean, or you could, a lot of ranges you can go and you can rent pistols,
Which is an awesome service that not enough people take advantage of.
Yeah, walk in there. I mean, that's the funny thing about this Glock 26 is that I went into the store, I shot probably 5 to 7 different concealed carry guns, and someone was like, at the end of it, I'm like, I really like this. I don't know what I was going for, and he's like, well, have you tried the Glock 26? It's like, no. He's like, yeah, you should probably just give it a try and shoot. I shot it, and it's not. Something about that gun, it's not terrible. It's really just, it's not like the most fun thing to shoot in the world, but I can handle it. It's fine. And I shot it and I was like, I like this out of every other gun. You're shooting the same ammo. You get to you have to load it. You have to rack it. So you basically are fucking around with everything, because there might be an aspect of one gun to gun that you don't like. Whether it's how it fits in your hand, whether it's how to manipulate, like, the slide release, like, even with ammo in there, it was still really heavy and kind of obnoxious, and it was too far from my thumb. This gun, it was right there.
Right.
Hey, there you go. That's, you know what? Fuck it. Why not?
And all of that is a learning process, and you're basically chiseling away and honing away the ignorance, that which is not understanding how a gun works.
And on top of that, so you could take any gun, right? And you could teach yourself to use it effectively. So if you start with something that's comfortable, it's going to come a little faster. And then, test all these guns out. And the best part is, my buddy texted me that day and said he was selling a Glock 26. So I ended up buying one way cheaper. And so you can go through, and then you can always search deals online.
Yep.
But there's a lot of guns. Canic has okay triggers.
They're awesome triggers.
It's like they're better than Glock triggers.
They're way better than Glock triggers. For a stock gun, I've never felt a better trigger on a gun.
Yeah, and I really like the Smith & Wesson trigger, but I also shot a shitload of rounds to it.
Right.
You pick a gun that's comfortable, and then so you go so and okay, so this is maybe the cart before the horse, because say you know nothing about guns. Go walk into a gun store and say, I've never shot a gun before. What should I do? They're going to recommend a couple classes. Take those classes. Even if you don't end up buying a gun, you know, like you see these children's books about teaching kids about guns, and what they always say is like, "Oh, I found a gun. We're going to leave it alone, and we're going to go find an adult." Because that's what you should do. If you don't know, because children don't know, they're ignorant. If you don't know how that gun, it's just sitting on the table, I mean, and you're not familiar with it, you could just unwillingly put your finger in the trigger and pull it. And
That's one of my favorite social experiments. Is one of the Christmases I bought my dad a gun, and my two lefty sisters were freaking out, and I was like, "You guys are really so ignorant that you're afraid of an inanimate object."
yeah, it's like, okay, look, it's not loaded. Like, you take it apart and you leave it on the table. Like, you have to know how to put this back together, find ammo, put it in the magazine, load it, cock it before anything goes off. Like, you're still scared of it. I just don't get it.
It's a woeful ignorance that we will never understand because we are accountable human beings, and I think that pretty well summarizes this as a very long summation of why the left sucks.
There is a ad infinitum. I already said that. Fuck, I already said that. I don't like repeating myself, but there's a very long list of things that I'm upset with the left about.
I think the accountability issue is probably my least favorite thing about them.
Just stop. like, I mean, nothing.
It's the same thing that I hate that people are proud of being ignorant. That's the same thing as lacking accountability. As you are in the age of information, I think that ignorance is a choice.
And I mean, there's not just being ignorant. It's also like being very snarky and I'm better than thou,
holier than thou
about everything. And I just don't get, like, I'm not confident in most things I say because I know that there's a million ways to interpret it. So I don't sit here and say like, oh, Smith & Wesson's the best brand. It's amazing.
Right.
Nothing's better than Smith & Wesson.
Well, that's the humility of knowing your ignorance, right?
Yeah.
We have the humility in that we are very, very experienced for our age, but we also knew what it took to get here. So we have the humility of saying, yeah, we have experience, but there's still a whole lot out there that we don't know. And we're willing to sacrifice our ego to say, hey, I don't know what that is. Can you tell me what it is? Can you teach me?
And I mean, I also listen to a lot of opposing viewpoints because I like to hear what their argument is.
No matter how bad it is.
No matter how bad. So like, but there's some that I can't listen to it. And I get it. I get people on the left's frustration with people like Trump because Trump's pretty smug and in your face. And you're like, and if you truly thought he was wrong and like everything he was doing, then I guess I'd be a little more upset. But then there's people like anyone on CNN or like someone that's maybe a little more rational, but a little more left, Jimmy Dore. His show, it's like he does these live shows where he's just like complaining about how much, and it's very much like a kind of a stand-up comedy, like he's playing the audience and it's very extreme. It's very extreme, and
so it's like the one reason I hate Joe Rogan is he'll try and make a point and have a zinger. It's like, oh, we were just having fun. It's just jokes. Like, no, Joe, you're pulling the classic hippie leftist Joe where you want to dismiss your accountability. You don't want to have accountability for your words anymore. So now you're just a jokester. No, Joe, you're an asshole. Same thing with Jimmy.
Yeah. And
you no longer want to have accountability for what you're saying and the repercussions of those actions. So now you're just a jokester.
I don't know about Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore just seems like he has anger problems and he really hates Republicans. But
so he's a dirty leftist.
The thing that I respect him for is that they're all big Tulsi Gabbard fans, so they're really pissed off about they hate the establishment Democrats.
Right.
That's where I'm like, we're on a similar
the enemy
plane.
of my enemy is my friend.
We're on a similar plane. Like, I know that you're like hardcore leftists and you think that guns should be made into, boots for dogs. And so like we can disagree on that. But I think that, but I do listen to a lot of opposing viewpoints because I'm not retarded. I can hear an opposing viewpoint and not get upset.
Not get emotionally charged, triggered.
I take it back. I might get upset.
But you have the composure to listen and try and understand.
Yeah, let's do it at work and just be like, and you know what I'm thinking the whole time? I'm like, nope. And they'll keep going. I'm like,
Nope. Wrong.
you know, I understand where they're coming from, but that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make it like, okay, here XYZ is why I don't like this, but I don't know anymore. I just don't like arguing guns with people because I really have to start from the beginning, and I don't feel like anyone's going to listen to me
That's the
start
problem
from
with
the beginning.
most boomers is they tried to give the chance to some. I've had this conversation with people who are older than boomers. Usually there is some underlying, the Anakin Skywalker effect is what I say is Obi-Wan is the textbook boomer if you think about it. In his young age, he was forced into a situation, eventually overcame the situation. Now he gets to teach the savior, right? So everyone sees their first Padawan, as it were, as their savior. And I've had dozens of Padawans being a teacher and being a mentor. I can tell you, it's just as exhausting the next child. But unfortunately, once they get the Anakin that blows up and turns to the dark side, they give up. Obi-Wan literally exiled himself to the desert. I know I'm getting a little deep not really deep in the Star Wars lore, but kind of nerdy. But the problem with society today is that most people give up after their Anakin. They don't take the time to give people a chance because they know probably 80% of them are not going to get what you're saying, and they don't give a shit because, again, people are woefully ignorant and selfish, and most people don't want to learn. The true virtue of a good teacher, which I very much pride myself on, is being able to sacrifice hours for people who really don't appreciate what you have to offer.
I would tack in there the ability to know how your student's progressing.
And being able to read them. Yeah, that's the feedback loop is, again, a two-way street. And a lot of times the student's not even mature enough to be able to have that social bond with a teacher. I never had that problem because I've never seen authority in people. I never respected my father for being an authority figure because I always questioned what he did. I questioned all of my teachers. I treated everyone as an equal growing up. And I think that's why I have no problem telling people what I think. And I don't see like you were talking about earlier with gun people and having that ultra awareness. I'm just there to shoot guns and have fun. I don't read that from people. I've never experienced that. But now you said it, I'm going to look. But I treat everyone as the way I'd want to be treated. So I have the woeful ignorance of I'm not going to shoot you. You're not going to shoot me. But I'm going to be prepared if you need to. So I have to piss like a racehorse. So if you want to give the folks a sign off here, I'm going to go pee.
Well, as we close out 2019, it's important to reflect and look back at the wonderful things that have occurred. We got Disney Plus is ringing in, and neither one of us haven't watched any of it. So go home and don't watch it, just like us. Keep on the good work. Make sure to always keep your powder dry, if I've heard that somewhere. And suck it up and suck my